Are you kidding me? That's what?
Yeah, every so often it happens that Ryan is right.
100% right. Not even a little bit right.
Tucker Pullman, 2 points last game.
No kidding.
My man!
Hey, neither does me running shirtless, but that turned out very well. Welcome to the PP1 podcast. Not a week goes by that I don't love that intro. Not a week. It's very self-serving for me, so that's great. But you know, I feel it delivers. It delivers. Boys, welcome to the PP1 podcast, another summer edition. Ted is clearly suns out, guns out. We've got our good friend Dixon Ward, formerly of the Vancouver Canucks, a long time ago of the Vancouver.
Long time ago.
He's been up to some stuff since.
More of a Buffalo guy we found during our last jump on with him.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't identify as a Vancouver Canuck.
I don't identify as anything these days. You're not allowed to. However, I do like the intro just because you brought up Tucker Pullman. And Tucker Pullman, his dad Mark Pullman was my athletic trainer in the University of North Dakota. He's still the athletic trainer at the University of North Dakota, and so the Pullman brothers my son played with one of them in Colton, who's with the Flames in Penticton, but I'm close friends with his dad Mark, and so I'm always rooting for the Pullman brothers. So when Tucker Pullman gets 2 points, you know it's a good day.
No kidding. Well, I mean, who would have thought? Hey, there's our 6 degrees of separation. How do you guys feel about Tucker Pullman? Apparently, we're very high on this guy.
Yeah, is he going to be healthy to start the season in Vancouver this year? And they're going to have to lean on him this year. He's going to have to play a role this year.
He's going to have to play a role, and if anybody can fix him in the summer, it's his dad, because that's what he does. So, I think he's an underrated player that needs a chance to feel comfortable in a role and an expectation that do this every shift, and he'll do it for you, and hopefully he gets that chance, and he's healthy, because it's difficult to perform in the National Hockey League if you're not feeling good all the time.
I've heard that.
Because I feel like at the start of last year he was sort of miscast in the role that he was in to start the season, and then he kind of found his game a little bit. I feel like he was really coming on before he got hurt, so it was kind of a shame for him to finish the season on the IR.
Well, it'll be a good chance for him to play for Bruce from the get-go, where Bruce is famous for letting guys do what they do well. That's his shtick, right? Go out there and do what you do well and have fun doing it. And I don't expect you to do anything more than you can. So, you hope all those guys get that opportunity. And I think, having that message through camp and the time for them to buy into that message is going to be helpful for them, I'm sure.
This is the longest, I'm pretty sure, that we've ever talked about Tucker Pullman on.
Well, there you go.
This is.
If you want to talk about anybody else, I got all kinds of stories.
Yeah, it's like we could go an hour. Like I got stories coming out of my union. That'll be. I mean, maybe we'll do a deep dive on. We'll get you at another day. Like this is all we're gonna talk about. We don't want to know about you. We don't want to know about the school or how everything's going. Yeah. Just Tucker Pullman content.
I'm gonna wager that the people are not here to hear Ryan Hank stories, though.
Mine are pretty interesting. If you've been following me online in the last day or so, people are
that's the glam shots.
Here's the way I look at it. It's always easy to talk about Elias Pettersson or Bo Horvat, and everybody does that ad nauseum every single day. Very few people talk about the depth guys or the guys that are part of the group that don't get any attention because they're not first-round draft choices. But those guys are typically the guys that have the best stories and where they came from, how they got there, what they go through on a daily basis to keep themselves there. Those are the interesting stories. Telling the stories about the Stars, that's easy. They were great since they were 2, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But these guys weren't. They grew up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. You ever seen Grand Forks minor hockey? Like, give me a break. They had no chance.
I haven't even been to Grand Forks, BC, so
that's surprising to me because that college program is just so revered, right? I mean, so to know that there's no minor hockey program out there and it's not a big thing, I'm actually surprised to hear that.
Well, they have a minor hockey program, and it's a small town, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Penticton minor hockey, for crying out loud. It's not big. I mean, you only have so many numbers. And so succeeding through small towns in Canada, United States, used to be the way to do it, but that whole process has changed over the years, as we know. And so it's good to see good kids, good hockey players get rewarded and get a chance to play. So those are stories that I really like.
I mean, you're right though. I mean, we could talk about, we've chatted about Wayne Gretzky, and we've chatted about, I mean, any star player, unless they've got a super interesting story, like, yeah, we get it. They're really good. Let's move on. Yeah. I should probably note this is it is the PP1 podcast on the Dean Blundell Network. We're live. If you got a question for Dixon a little bit later on, I do have a few from Twitter that we can get to. Nothing crazy, but just pick his brain a little bit. We are brought to you in concert with Move Health and Wellness. I'll get to those guys a little bit later. Ted, I do believe you should be investing in their services. Although you did look pretty good at ball on Monday night, playing first base, and despite 2 aggravated hamstrings, he looked okay. I mean, visually, your legs did not look pleasing as far as the bruising on there, but you did all right. I was impressed. We were happy to see you back after a little bit of a hiatus. So
I'll take it.
I mean, and obviously, Dixon, you've had a lot going on lately. The BC Hockey Hall of Fame just had their annual ceremony there. Matthias Ohlund, Eric Brewer, Shearer in there, the 2012 Vs, the 02 Kootenay Ice. Now, I was chatting about this with you a little bit earlier today. What's your involvement with the BC Hockey Hall of Fame?
Well, our company, the Okanagan Hockey Group, in Penticton, specifically, anything that happens in hockey, we have major involvement in, obviously. But we've always been heavily involved in the sponsorship side of things, the planning, the organization of the event. And it's an amazing event every year in Penticton that we host, and we're a big part of that. And the BC Hockey Hall of Fame, who Jim Hewson now is the chair and runs that whole program since he retired from broadcasting, doing a fabulous job of recognizing, people in hockey, whether they're former players, coaches, officials, builders, that have made an impact in BC, or they're from BC and have made an impact somewhere else. And so for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been involved, and that's 15, 16 years, we've always hosted a private event up at the Red Rooster Winery, and we honor the inductees. And I go through a big dog and pony show of speaking about every single inductee and their stats and their past history and where they were born and where they eat for their first meal, and the whole works that I have to study up on and go through.
That's
and
easy.
we have
That's easy.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. The BC Hockey Hall of Fame does a great job of recognizing everybody that's involved, and we have a lot of the past inductees. So we always have, the Bob Nicholsons of the world, and the Kirk McLeans, and the Bruce Hamiltons, and everybody supports us tremendously in BC here. And so it's a really awesome event. And so we went through it this week, and it was awesome. We missed 2 years in a row. So the inductees that went in this year actually got inducted 2.5 years after they were announced. So that was quite a wait. But we had an amazing time. And the event was tremendous. So always lots of fun.
No kidding. I mean, I guess, and you're probably, as you go through, see some guys that you've played with as well. And I'm sure you got all your old war stories that you can get through. Again, probably some interesting ones that probably never make it to a show like this, or let alone public, but I'm sure it's a good time. Do you have any inside track of who might be going in next year? Have you guys even heard about the discussion for that yet?
Yeah. Also, how does that work?
I don't. And you know what? I don't know who's going in next year, and because it'll be the 2021 class. We just put the 2020 class in.
Crazy.
So next year will be the 2021 class. And I think that they didn't announce it because of COVID.
Right.
So, but what my guess is, and I don't know, that they'll announce it sometime in probably January, and they may, depending on how many they're going to put in, they may do 2 at once to catch
Right.
up,
Right.
which would probably put me over the edge because I have to do the research on everybody and talk about them. And if I have to remember 62 names and 8 guys' stats, that's a tough one for me. But I don't know exactly when they're going to announce it, and I don't know who's going in. But I'm sure there's quite a few guys that are still deserving. Obviously, we put Matthias Olin in there, and he is one of the best Canuck defensemen in history. So there's lots of guys out there deserving, and there's a lot of great BC-born players that have done great things outside of BC, and they're eligible as well. So
Right.
we'll see how all that goes. But yeah, we over the years have inducted many guys I played with, many guys that many officials that worked the game. Like we put Jay Scherers in, and you know he was officiating the NHL my entire career, and got, you know, as a player you always form these relationships with officials because you see them quite often, and it was really cool to see him go in and to learn about his backstory and meet his family. And he was really appreciative of the opportunity to go in the Hall of Fame. That was really cool to see him do that. The first Black official in the history of the National Hockey League. October 9th, 1990 in Boston Garden, he suited up for his first game as an official and made history. 27 years later, he reffed over 1,600 games. So it's a pretty amazing story.
Crazy.
Unbelievable.
What's how does the selection process work? So when they're going over it and just deciding who's going to be on the short list, is there a voting process? Is the board big? Like, I don't, just maybe shed a little light on that.
No, the selection committee is probably 5 to 6 people deep. But they take nominations, not in a public fashion, but they'll throw names on the table, and then they'll go through the process. And always, as you know, in any Hall of Fame sort of capacity, you have a couple, 2 or 3 players. You have builders, you have coaches, you have officials, different categories of why you're getting inducted. And so there's always a wide range. And there's teams, special teams that have accomplished great things, like the Penticton V's of 2012 that won 42 games in a row, set the all-time junior A record of winning streak, went on to have a 54-4-0-2 record.
Crazy.
Won the RBC championships, the 2002 Memorial Cup champion Kootenay Ice who went in. Those are special teams from our province that have done great things. So they always try to do those things and try to spread out the love, not just guys that played for the Canucks or guys that played in the NHL, which are impressive in their own right. But we put in Ray Stonehouse, who built junior B hockey on the coast for 40 years. Unfortunately, he was announced in 2000, and before they can get to the induction, he passed away in the meantime, which was too bad. So we put him in, and his wife was there, and it's a really special moment for her because she was right by his side. And a lot of these guys that don't get a ton of respect in the game until someone looks back on their career and says, wow, they did a lot of great things for hockey in our province. And it's not just about the Canucks, it's not just about the NHL, it's about hockey across the board. And so it's a really amazing time, and you meet a bunch of great people, and we have a few glasses of wine at the winery and enjoy ourselves and reconnect with old friends and tell some great stories. And so it's always my favorite week of the year.
If you get into too big of a list, you let me know what that assistant job pays out. And, you got my email address. I'm sure we can make something happen.
Ryan, I'll tell you, if you want to come next year to our part of the event, you got an open invitation. It's an amazing event. Someone like you who's so in tune and enjoys that part of it and the history of it and the inner workings of it. You're more than welcome to be my guest at any one of those events in the future.
Beauty.
That'll be my bodyguard. Look at he's built. He'll make sure that I get in no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what.
No matter what.
But you do have to give a donation to the Okanagan Hockey Community Foundation on your way in. So
which only sounds fair, yeah.
Bring your toonies.
I might have to start collecting, I think. So
Yeah.
I want to get into a couple other things. Obviously, congrats on your son Taylor signing an entry-level deal with you might have heard about the Los Angeles Kings. I believe you may know that organization a little bit.
I do. Yeah.
Pretty awesome. What is his path kind of look like? Obviously, entry-level deal obviously means that he's just kind of getting in on the ground floor. He's going to clearly be playing some minor league puck, but if you were to guess, and I mean, I know you're going to have a little bit of bias, but what does his season look like? Do you think he even gets a quick cup of coffee as a call up, or and
here's where he's at. So at the end of his college season last year, he signed as a free agent with the Kings, went to the American League in the Ontario Reign, which is right in LA. So really good. Played extremely well. Played 21, 22 games. Played every game. Played lots of minutes. They played him in all kinds of situations. He did really well. Just went down 2 weeks ago. They had their development camp. So he was home for a month, went back to LA. He stayed in LA, straight in there with their development coaches all summer. You can look at their roster, you can look at their signed guys, you can look at their returning guys. He's on the depth chart, but as a hockey guy looking at what he brings, at some point this year, depending on injuries or what happens, I wouldn't be surprised if he got himself an opportunity. But his goal is to go out there every day and do the best he can, play a hard game, and utilize his skill set to his advantage, and hopefully it gets recognized. And you can't predict anything in the National Hockey League. Who knows? I mean, I'm a perfect example. You just don't know until the day comes. And
yeah,
right.
The key is, and the message that I give him, the only message I give him is, just make sure you're prepared for when the time comes. And if and when it comes, be prepared, because that chance may come once. Right. And so be prepared for it. So he's down there working hard. He's enjoyed himself living in Hermosa Beach and
terrible life.
Sounds awful.
Having a great time, and he's excited about the future. So good luck to him, and hopefully he gets an opportunity.
Yeah, what is his game? Obviously, he's going to have a little bit, I feel like, of a leg up when you've been working in the system. You spent some time there last year, so he's going to understand a little bit about what's going on there. But what is his game? How is he going to make it? What's he going to do that's going to be sort of his calling card to get there?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because you have to identify yourself, and because, as you know, when we hear it, what kind of player is he? What's his identity? What does he do? He's a big, strong guy. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. He's a physical guy. He's not afraid to mix it up. He went into the American League and was trying to find some fights. Finally found a couple fights and did his thing. But he's an intelligent, super intelligent guy that can make plays, shoots the puck extremely well, and he scores goals. He did it consistently through his college career, and so he's got to be a big, strong power winger that can make plays and shoot the puck, and that's what he's going to have to be. And there's teams out there, and the Kings are looking for that type of player. So you got to be able to mix it up, and you got to be able to stand up for your teammates, but you also have to make plays.
I remember just seeing that day when I saw the I guess the news ticker come out there, and I mean, obviously you work with your wife Tina, and I mean, just super awesome. I mean, again, knowing you guys a little bit more and knowing his journey out there, I just think it's kind of cool that he gets that kind of opportunity. And because, as you said, you hope that you get that chance. I mean, as far as even making it to get a pro deal, let alone get called up, let alone make it past college. So I think to see that progression, I think is super cool that he gets that, because, as you said, there's guys that'll never get a sniff past, junior A or past major junior or whatever, and they graduate from high school and maybe play a few years in some super semi-pro league or go overseas for a year, and then that's it, and then they get a job like the rest of us. The fact that there's an opportunity for him to make hockey his job, I think, is super cool. So again, congratulations on that, and I know we'll be looking for it. I had a nice little segue here. This also ties into the LA Kings. Dustin Brown is getting his jersey retired next season, and they're also building a statue of Brown. Now, hear me out for a second. You've got Magic Johnson, you got Wayne Gretzky, and I'm Dustin Brown. I'm sorry, as good as he was, and I get the cups and everything.
Oh, Ryan, I don't. You're treading on.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I want to read the room here. I'm sorry, but if you put those two athletes together in Los Angeles, does Dustin Brown belong in that? And I'm asking, is that a fair question? Does he belong in, like, LA sports, infamy? Like, is he an elite Los Angeles athlete that he gets a statue? It's one thing to have your jersey retired or a band or whatever. Statues, that's a pretty big deal, I'd say.
Well, here's my comment on that, because I've seen it on Twitter all day, and I've read some of the my favorite and least favorite commentators make comment on it. And the way that I look at it is, all of us have a different viewpoint of what constitutes who gets a statue.
Sure.
Who gets a statue in Edmonton is different than who gets a statue in Winnipeg and who gets a statue in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And so really our opinion means absolutely nothing.
Oh, I get it. Oh, absolutely. So
the point being is Dustin Brown's impact on the community and what he did for hockey after Gretzky in LA as a captain of 2 Stanley Cup teams.
Mm-hmm.
Beloved. He's beloved by the LA hockey community as much as Wayne ever was. Wayne was beloved by the Hollywood community and the Stardom community.
Mm-hmm.
But Dustin Brown, his wife, his kids, they were integral part of the community for many years in LA. So they're recognizing his contribution as a person more than they are as a player. And if they decide that that's important enough to put a statue outside of the Crypto.com arena, I'm cool with that. I would never begrudge anybody for having a statue.
No, again,
and they may, and by the end of it, in Edmonton, there may only be one statue. Mm-hmm. In 25 years, they may have 25 outside of the rink in LA, which is cool. True. That's the way they want to do it. Right, because Kobe Bryant doesn't even have a statue yet, and he's going to have one pretty darn quick. So, the point being is, it's all relative to what you believe. Like, we all have a belief system that, if you actually have a statue of any kind, you either won a war or you're the greatest player in the history of the sport.
Yeah.
But for them, it's just their way of recognizing somebody that's made a huge impact on their organization and on the community. And so I don't have a problem with it. I know for a fact how much he means to that organization and what he's done for them, just in the way that he played the game, and not in a Hart Trophy or a Hockey Hall of Fame manner, but in the way in which he dragged the team into 2 Stanley Cups with his sheer will and effort. Hey, good on him. Good on him.
It's like kind of like Monument Park, I guess, for the Yankees, right? I guess is that kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean,
same ilk, I guess. Like, thinking back, you're giving a great example, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, the Yankees have a lot of different guys back there, and I mean, hey, we saw LA. I get it. I mean, he's a winner. That's a perspective I wasn't thinking. You always do this to me. I come up with some snarky ass comment, and then you come in and bring reason.
Like that time that you said Wayne was.
And we're not going there. That was not said ever. That was not said ever.
I mean, I think it comes down to, like, if you want to use like a Vancouver reference. I mean, had the Canucks won in '94, there'd probably be a Trevor Linden statue up front of GM Place, right? I mean, that's it's the same idea as what did he mean to that team? How was he revered? Sure. He was an ambassador for the franchise for his entire career. So I think it makes perfect sense. I think that's probably a better way to honor him than anything.
Yeah, and every organization's got their own feelings about how they want to honor people, and it's not across the board. You have to meet these standards. Every organization's a private industry and a private business, so they get to choose whoever they want.
They can do whatever they want. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Rob Blake doesn't have a statue out front of the rink, and he's a general manager, and he's happy to give Dustin Brown one. So, and he's arguably one of the best defensemen that ever played. He's in the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame, and Dustin Brown will never be in the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame. So it's different standards for different organizations. So we can't carte blanche say you have to accomplish this before you're allowed a statue in Los Angeles or Nashville or St. Louis. For us, is just say, hey, this guy was pretty awesome and good for him.
I think on the surface, like I said, you see two, pretty massive stars in their own right from their respective sports. And it is, you bring up Kobe Bryant as well. And that's some pretty impressive company. So if he's getting one, like I said, you're bringing a whole lot more to the conversation. We saw what he did to the Canucks on his way to his first cup. That team alone was, arguably one of the greatest teams of all time to win a cup. They essentially ran the table. So
yeah, I scored 9 goals for the Kings. I'm waiting for my statue, but it's not coming.
I'll start the petition tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. You never know. Hey man, I got the gift of gab. You never know. We just saw the NHL draft, and a buddy of yours gets to coach Shane Wright, which I don't think anybody saw falling as far as he did. But what did you text to your buddy Dave Haxtell when Shane Wright fell to the Kraken? Because that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it all depends on how you look at it. But by the 4th pick, they had no choice. Like the Seattle Kraken had absolutely no choice but to pick him, whether they wanted to or not. They had to.
Yeah,
like you don't have any choice. And I think they're pretty optimistic that things are working out, because if you look at the scheme of their draft pick and the Matty Beniers, who they took the year before, he's an entirely different player than Shane Wright. So you're not dealing with the two of the same type of players. Right. So you look at your future of your franchise and you go, okay, we got a 1-2 center punch here with two guys that are totally different. Both great players, both accomplished players, both going to be really good NHL players. But we don't have to fight for the same minutes with these players because they're totally different hockey players. So I think that they're excited about that part of it. But as a coach, you really, it doesn't really matter. You don't have a say in who they're picking. You're coaching whoever they throw in front of you. But as a coach, I think Dave is going to be excited about the fact that this kid, for whatever anybody wants to say about him, he's a pretty solid two-way hockey player that's pretty mature. Like he was mature at 15 years old, and that's why he got exceptional status. And he's he didn't do himself any favors, from what I understand, in the interview process and this and that and the other thing. But as a hockey player, when he steps on the ice, he understands the game. He's a pretty responsible player. He's going to be an easier guy to coach than some guys that you have to beg and borrow and plead to cover somebody in the D zone because they want to, take off for breakaways all day long because that's what they think they want to do. So I think Dave's going to be a really good coach for him, because Dave's, as you know, as you get to see the last time we chatted, he's an extremely humble guy, and he'll make Shane Wright understand the value of being humble and going to work every day and just proving yourself with your actions.
Sometimes we get these guys too, like maybe not just exceptional status players. When you've had players that are like projected to go number 1 in their draft for like 4 years prior to their draft, I feel like, and this happens in all sports, that there's like so much focus that happens with these players that holes get poked in their games that maybe wouldn't have been there for any other player. So for him to end up in this situation, obviously it's crazy for him to fall there, but like you said, could have just ended up in a phenomenal spot, and he, has the opportunity to give the old rue the day thing, right? So I'm just really excited to see what happens with him and Beniers down the road.
Well, you made an absolutely great point. When you're under the spotlight and everybody's watching you, the most amazing thing, and scouts do this all the time, and I talk to scouts about this all the time, whether it's at the Western League Scouts or the National Hockey League Scouts. The more you watch somebody and the more somebody talks about this person, you're always looking for the negativity that you can find in them. And it's going to happen. And mark my words, you wait till Connor Bedard next year, and people are going to start to try to find holes in him. Rather than just saying, this guy's pretty damn awesome, let's just leave it at that. They're going to try to find a reason that he's not as great as people think he is. And that's just a weird phenomenon because they watch players so much, they start to look for negative things to hold on to. And that's what happened with Shane Wright. It's a great point you made. And it's going to happen with Connor Bedard. Now, he's a different player. He's going to put up massive numbers. He's got more offensive ability than Shane Wright. That's not the player Shane Wright is, but
right.
But they're going to look for holes, and they're going to say he's not big enough, he's not strong enough, he doesn't do this well enough, he doesn't cover his guy in the D zone well enough. They'll look for all these things. At the end of the day, just say take him first overall, and he'll be the rookie of the year. So, but it's a human nature. It happens all the time, and Shane Wright got caught up in that, and somebody told him for 5 years in a row he's the greatest player in the world at his age group, and he'll grow out of that, and he'll have a long, illustrious career in the National Hockey League, and he won't even remember where he got picked in 5 years. That it won't matter.
Mm-hmm. So what happens in like those interviews that they would be able to pick apart something like? Is it just like the perceived attitude that they feel that they're getting in, when they're chatting with them, or that they feel that that he's too good to get picked at that spot? Like what? I mean, you obviously don't know what happened in this case, but like, what are the things that maybe go through that the teams are looking at?
Well, they ask some really weird questions. Like sometimes the NHL tries, they outsmart themselves.
Yeah,
like they try to get so complicated, and they bring in sports psychologists, and they ask some questions that really, at the end, they have no relevance to the game. The game is about, let's get the puck, skate down the ice, and shoot it in the other team's net. That's the game, right? But they talk themselves into some really weird stuff. It's amazing some of the questions they ask. But some of the things he said publicly didn't help him. When he went out publicly and said, I deserve to be the first overall pick. Anytime you ever say I deserve something, people don't like that. No kidding. Especially old school hockey people. They don't like the
even
word
if it is
deserve.
true.
Even if it is true, if you do deserve it, you never say it. Connor McDavid never said it. He didn't have to say it. So you should never have to say I deserve anything, because the NHL guys, and it doesn't even matter if the NHL guys at any level of hockey, they don't like players thinking they deserve anything. They have to earn everything. Mm-hmm. And you earn it by going out there and proving it. And so he didn't help himself there. And I don't think he was doing it in any sort of arrogant way. It just was a young kid, been told forever he was going to be the number one pick. So
why would you think otherwise? Exactly.
Why would you think anyway? So yeah. I felt bad. I felt bad for him in a sense that he got put in that situation. But hey, it doesn't matter where you get picked. You got to go play the game, and you got to do your job, and you'll get paid, and you'll play a long time, and things will be good. Nobody really cares.
Yeah, life will be fun.
You said it right there, like they're kids. Like I don't know what we expect of any other kid out there.
I know,
when you were asking these questions. But I mean, you mentioned that some of these, like you've heard some of the weirdest questions come out of these interviews. Can you share a couple? Like,
well, no, they paint scenarios that are irrelevant to anything, and I was like, it's just. They're like riddles. They ask you riddles, and to see which direction you'll go with your answer. And a lot of times it doesn't matter what the answer is. They're looking at how you figure out the riddle. And for some reason, some sports psychologist thinks he can tell a player's mentality by how he carries his body language while he's thinking. And at the end of the day, they outsmart themselves. Now, we're going to find out in about 3 or 4 years who was right in the draft and who was wrong in the draft. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way we're going to be able to judge. when push comes to shove, who's going to get it done? What organization is going to develop their draft pick the best, which is amazing when you look at the history of high picks that didn't succeed, and they call the kid a bust. And in most of those cases, it was the organization that screwed up by not developing the kid properly. But the organization will never take credit for screwing up a kid. But it all depends on where you get drafted. Like, he should be so happy to be drafted by the Seattle, because of the staff and the people they have in place there are not going to let him fail. We're going to see what Slafkovsky does in Montreal and how that whole scenario and that culture that they have around the Montreal Canadiens, we'll see how he does.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. And so the organization's got a big responsibility to make sure that they take the kid they drafted and develop him properly. And if he doesn't pan out in 3 years, they can't just wash their hands and say, oh, the kid was no good. They got to take responsibility. These kids are all awesome. Trust me. How they handle them for the next 3-4 years is going to determine how great they're going to be.
So I like this, that the big takeaway from this is that kids aren't busts, organizations are busts, and don't overthink it.
That's right. That's exactly right. The organization now takes on the responsibility. How do I handle this kid? How do I develop him mentally? How do I develop him emotionally? How do I support him on and off the ice? How do I integrate him into the city culture and his teammate culture to make him feel comfortable to go out and do the things that his skill set allows him to do? If you don't provide him that support, any 18 and 19-year-old kid is going to have a really difficult time. And I've seen it over and over again. With really good players that just get torn down because the coach is old school, or the organization doesn't spend any time and energy looking after the kid, and they don't realize that these guys are 18 years old. You know how young an 18-year-old kid is? They're still kids. Whether we want to, you look at them on TV and they're 6'4", 220 pounds, but they're still kids. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see who can manufacture an environment for these kids that allows them to succeed in the long term. And I enjoy watching that part of it, because there's some really good organizations in the NHL that do it well, and there's some that do not do it well.
That was actually going to be my next question. I kind of wanted to tiptoe around that because you don't want to say too much and make it public. But are there still teams that, like, have there been teams that have been consistent, and we don't need actual names, but have there been organizations that have been consistently good through and through, consistently bad through and through, or teams that even have made maybe like a culture change? Like, have you seen any of that?
Oh yeah. Over the last 20 years, there was half the teams in the National Hockey League 15, 20 years ago that were terrible. They had no development system. They had no pure understanding of their player. A general manager and go draft a kid first, second, or third overall and wouldn't talk to the kid for 2 years.
Wow. Jeez.
They have a coach that would abuse the kid at 18 years old verbally because he wasn't doing the things he should do as a first overall pick. But how would he know what to do as a first overall pick? He's 18 years old. And then on the flip side, there's organizations that take their time. They understand the mentality of players. Today, the vast majority of them have a really good handle on that. The coaches in the National Hockey League, the younger coaches that understand the mentality and the emotional level of young players, and they have the staff involved to help support these young players. Years ago, there was nothing. These kids were sinking or swimming on their own. And if they hooked up with the wrong group within the team, they were going the wrong direction. And we all know those horror stories, and they happen all the time. And so in the National Hockey League today, the vast majority of teams have a really good system in place to help develop these players. I see what happens in these NHL development camps with these draft picks that go in a couple of weeks ago, and they go through this process. Everyone likes to think they're evaluation weeks. They have nothing to do with, nobody's evaluating them as hockey players. They're integrating them into their culture of their team, introducing them to their staff, understanding who they are, giving them an opportunity to feel comfortable around the group. That's the whole purpose of it. And to get them to be part of their family and their culture, and that's the whole purpose. And they'll evaluate in the fall. Nobody evaluates anybody in the summertime.
Maybe they're cannonball into the pool or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, hey, they go to my son was in LA. They spent the whole day on the beach playing beach volleyball and barbecue and hot dogs, and that's a development.
Man.
I could do the NHL easy, no problem.
Yeah.
And so, but that's part of the process, and they've much better recognition of what these kids need nowadays than it used to be, and most of them are in really good hands. But there's still organizations that their development people are just somebody's buddy that needed a job, and nobody's paying attention. And unfortunately for me, I'm in a development business, and I can see where people fall down on that process. And most of it is in just the emotional and mental support that these kids need, more so than what they need on the ice is more important.
Well, they've got the gift already, right?
They got the gift, and over time you can refine the gift. You can refine the gift, but you can't refine the gift unless the kid is emotional stable and comfortable and confident. You can't do anything on the ice unless they have those things in place.
So a couple of guys just got promoted to player development in Vancouver. They weren't somebody's friend. It was Daniel and Henrik, obviously.
Yeah.
But you live in this industry of player development, right? So how much of a boon is that for the organization? What are the players going to get out of having a couple of Hall of Famers and in my opinion, obviously class acts like Daniel and Henrik taking over that spot, which seems like a crazy thought when you think about it for how important to the franchise they are. They're in that specific position.
Yeah, for those guys, I mean, at the start for them, like, let's be honest, they've never developed anybody in their life, right? Except themselves.
No, exactly.
And so development isn't just showing kids what you used to do. It's about understanding how to build relationships with those players, breaking down the important parts of the game, and communicating effectively so that player can understand what it is that you're trying to teach them. And so that's going to take them some time to understand how that process of teaching works. But early on, the important part is teaching kids how to be the professionals that they always were since the day they showed up in Vancouver. Consummate professionals, hardworking, handle themselves publicly in the press, in the media, within their teammates, extremely well from the get-go. So that's going to be a huge benefit for those young players to be around them, because they live that. And they are the most professional guys that you'll ever meet in your life, and intelligent and caring and emotionally stable and all the things that they've gone through. On the ice stuff, they're going to have to take some time to learn how to break those skills down and teach them in layers so that young players can understand, because they're going to understand things that other players don't just because it was intuitive to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just say, okay, go do what I did. Go protect the puck in the corner like I did, and then spin around and hit Daniel in the slot because I know he was there because he's been there for 15 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all about breaking it down into individual physical skills and then tactical skills, and then how that integrates in the team. And they'll learn that as they start to work more with players. But just their presence and their professionalism is going to help the Canucks tremendously right off the bat.
I think we're all excited knowing that those two guys are going to be helping develop whatever that next wave of players is, and even if guys that may never play too. So, and
the type of people they are, and their value system, and there's just a quality of human. It rubs off on people, and that's as important as how hard you can shoot at the end of the day.
This isn't all about Canucks and about finding out what's going to be happening next season in the Hockey Hall of Fame and all that. Let's shine some light on OHA and for the men and women that are currently being trained out there. Is there a few names on both sides, both men and women, that we might be hearing their names a little bit more in the next couple of years, or someone even on both sides that you've kind of seen develop, obviously more on the Penticton side, because I'm assuming you're there a little bit more. Maybe throw a few names out that deserve a little bit of praise, or that we're going to be hearing a little bit more about for the women's program, and obviously the men's side too.
We have some really awesome young kids, and we have used to be called the Bantam level. It's a U15 level now, U15 prep level, and these are the kids that are going into their Bantam draft year in the WHL. So we have actually 3 local kids that are, man, they conceivably could be 3 of the top 5 picks in the Bantam draft. And
Whoa.
Matthias Preston and the Ruck twins from down in southern BC, the Ruck brothers and Matthias Preston are unbelievably skilled and intelligent and competitive, and you'll hear about them in the draft for sure next spring. Tremendous young players, tremendous young kids, super talented kids, and they've been with us for a couple of years. And you're going to hear a lot about the Rucks and Preston. And on the female side, that one of the most exciting kids we have is a girl from southern BC by the name of Danica Maynard, and she was a 14-year-old this last year, and she may have been the best hockey player in our entire program. If you're judging hockey players on brains, skill set, competitiveness, understanding of the game, and compete level, she's a 14-year-old girl, about 100 pounds, and she is going to be a girl to look out for moving forward. She'll play on the U18 team when she's 15 years old, I'm guessing.
Whoa!
Just an amazing young hockey player that I don't care if you're talking male or female. She was one of the best I've seen in a long time, and I'm really excited to see her mature over the next couple of years and what she's going to accomplish. So Danica Maynard's going to be one to watch.
What position does she play?
She's a defenseman.
Oh, boy.
Oh, cool.
But when she decides she needs to get it done, she doesn't care what position she's playing.
Oh, man. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to earmark this minute 46. Remember that,
she's awesome. Yeah, she's going to be great. We have a lot of great players, and those are the ones that come to mind because they're the young, really skilled ones. But we have a tremendous group of athletes down there, and a tremendous staff, and more importantly, a tremendous plan on how to support these kids through their process and make sure they get everything they need to accomplish all the goals that they have set out for themselves, and probably make some new goals as we go, because every week we can come up with a new goal and go in a different direction, and that's all exciting stuff. So we're excited about getting started in September.
A couple of questions here. Okay, so one would be like, how often does it happen when the new year starts and you see a player for the first time where it's just like jaw-dropping goosebumps? Because I imagine that happens from time to time for you. Even for you, you've seen it all. And then secondly, how does a player even get into your program? Is that something you have to apply for? Is it something that you make camp for? Are you evaluating these players before they enter the program? What do people look for when they're trying to make it over there?
Yeah, well, the first question, it happens when you see kids, and usually when I get really excited about a kid is a kid that I know, or a kid that's been in the program, and they go home for the summer, and they come home and they've, changed, and they've grown, and they got stronger, they worked on their game, and they come back and they've taken everything that we've tried to teach them and they've employed it in their game, and all of a sudden they become an entirely different player. That excites me because we have something to do with that. And a lot of times in development, it doesn't happen overnight. You don't see the results tomorrow or next week, but sometimes it takes 6, 8, 12, 18 months for the light bulb to go on. And all of a sudden, when that light bulb goes on for a kid, when their brain chemistry changes, they go through puberty, or they get the physical confidence to be able to do the things that we've been teaching them. All of a sudden, they put it all together. You go, oh man, we got something great here. That's really fun. And that's what we get excited about. We're not too surprised with new kids that come in, because we know every kid that's coming in, because we've done what you asked about, how do you get in? We've done evaluations. We've recruited. They've applied to the program. We've watched video. We've had them in evaluation camps. We know what we're getting right off the bat. And then we go through a process with all families about, is this a good fit for your family? Is it a good fit for the kid? Does it work family dynamic wise? Does it work financially? We go through an exhaustive process with every kid to make sure this is the right opportunity for them, because it's not for everyone. It's a big commitment. And so we're in a position where we get to make sure that families are comfortable with what we do. They trust what we do, and we're comfortable with where their kids at. We're not a rehabilitation center. We're in and I always say this, we only deal with elite kids, and that doesn't mean elite on the ice. We want to deal with elite people that we can help them become elite on the ice. So we want to make sure it's a good fit for the kid, because we have all of our kids there every single day. And we want to make sure that they integrate with each other and support each other in a positive way. We can't have kids that are going against the grain, because it drags other kids down, and it's not what we want to do. And so we do turn away many kids that don't fit into our value system, and that's okay. And we have a lot of kids that are, come in as average hockey players, but they're unbelievable people and turn out to be even better people and better students and better hockey players, and they get on and have opportunity as they move, whether that's junior A or junior B or wherever they go at the highest level they can play. They have to have the whole package as people. So, it's a big process, and it's a big commitment for families. And so we make sure we put all the time and energy in we can to make sure that it's a good fit.
Love it.
We're going to finish strong. And by strong, I mean, have a little bit of fun. Like, it's been a lot of business. I feel like we've been really serious stuff going on here. A buddy of ours, a buddy on Twitter, Dan, who's also been on the show, great guy to chat with. He wanted to know, Dixon, how nervous were you playing with big player of ours, Pavel Bure, in his first game?
How nervous was I?
That's what he's asking.
Yeah, I don't know if
were you in that
Pavel.
game?
I was just nervous playing. Yeah, no, in my first game, I played with Pavel.
Right.
I didn't play with him. He played a year before I got to Vancouver.
Right.
So he was a rookie in 91, 92. I was a rookie 92, 93. But my first NHL game, I played online with Pavel and Greg Adams in Edmonton, my hometown. So I was nervous enough for all of those reasons, without worrying about Pavel.
Yeah.
How many tickets did you have to buy for that game?
A lot, and I didn't make any. Most of my measly paycheck went to buying tickets, but it was pretty exciting. And I played quite a bit with Pavel in my first year. And once I got to understand what Pavel was all about, he was a fun guy to play with. And as long as you got the puck far enough out in front of him that he didn't overskate it, then you were probably going to get a few assists just by chipping it out in the neutral zone, because he was faster than everybody else. And he was a great guy. And I had the great fortune to play with him right at the start of my career, and then right at the end of my career with the Rangers. Pavel was one of the all-time greats. He was an amazing guy. As everybody that got a chance to see him, he could pull stuff off that most people at that time couldn't do.
There's,
still
things that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've played with some players, obviously. We've talked about this before in the previous time you were on the show, but like, who are some guys that you played with that like maybe people don't always think about, that were just like super exciting or just phenomenal talents that were just off the board when you're on the ice with them? It's almost jaw-dropping what they're doing out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Most players that are that good, everybody knows about. But if you look at the secondary guys, or the guys that people don't talk about, the guys that I enjoyed playing with that I thought were amazing players, I can talk about, Michael Pekka in Buffalo, for example. He never scored over 27 goals in his career, but the things he did to change the game and the way he played the game in both ends of the rink, and as a centerman, and I played with him for 5 years, he was my centerman. The nuances that he had in his game and the way his brain worked and the way he hit people. We talk about Matthias Olin. I was on the ice when he knocked Matthias Olin out in Vancouver one night, and we were killing the penalty. And he knew exactly what Matthias was going to do on the breakout, and he pretended he didn't, and he turned on his edge and put the shoulder under his chin, and it was lights out. And he could do those things at 170 pounds. Billy Guerin. I played with Billy Guerin in Boston. He was a big, strong guy. He was an amazing player, one of the best teammates you'll ever have. And as it turns out, he's a fantastic general manager, and he's done an excellent job in Minnesota. And guys like that, they're good players. Everybody knew they were really good players, but they didn't score 100 points a year, but man, were they ever good. Joe Thornton, when he was a young player, when I played with him in Boston, was phenomenal and tough and did all the things that and mean and dirty and all the things he used to be able to do back in the day. And then turned out to be one of the greatest passers in the game because that was easier than beating people up and cross-checking guys in the face. But yeah, the list goes on. Every guy I ever played with was a National Hockey League player, so they were all really good. Like, there's no bad ones, right?
I just saw the Pekka hit on Olin and Barnaby's there. McGillney was on the other side in that game.
Yeah.
So go figure, wasn't in Buffalo anymore, but looks like Barnaby made sure that nobody was going to mess with Peck afterwards.
I like the Bill Guerin reference too. I mean, especially the GM side of things. He's obviously putting in some work these last couple of weeks. He had some like tough no love comments in the media, which I friggin' love. So good for him. I'll be following Minnesota this year too. I think it's exciting.
He's the best guy you'll ever meet in your life, and I'm a huge fan of him. So all my old friends that are involved in the game, I cheer for them a lot, and I'm quite happy for them. And when my son signed in LA, I played with Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille in LA, and I didn't talk to those guys at all. I had nothing to do with the process, and my son went through his process and talking to all the teams that were trying to sign him, and he chose LA. And right after, Rob Blake sent me a text and says, "Hey, Dixie, don't worry about it. We'll take care of your son. It's all good." And I'm like, I have no doubt you'll be fine. Those are the guys I cheer for because they're all, old friends, and in the hockey world is small, and you never forget your teammates.
No kidding.
Awesome.
I was going to bring up the whole jersey, the reverse retro. There's been enough talk on Twitter about that. I did have one question though, kind of serious, kind of interesting, family related. COVID's obviously changed the landscape of a lot of sports, and I think guys going through UFA status, RFA status, we've seen recently have chosen family, new beginnings, different cities that maybe aren't the obvious choice. Calgary, obviously, we saw in the last week and a half, around free agency with Gaudreau going, and then obviously the Tkachuk trade. Are we going to be seeing? Do you think we're going to be seeing a bit of more of that, not only with the Stars like in Toronto and Edmonton, but is that going to maybe become a trend in the next year or two that guys are actually going to start thinking? Obviously, they're thinking that they want to make sure that they're going to get their bag because there's going to be a chance to, you want to make sure that you cash in and take care of your family as long as humanly possible. And they're doing okay in those contracts, but maybe a little bit more so on the family side where I would say it's probably perceived prior that, guys are going to take the absolute most money they can take and go play whoever's going to offer them that highest dollar value. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that are important to realize about what in these situations, like the Gaudreau situation, the Tkachuk situation. It's going to happen. The way the collective bargaining agreement has worked now, guys are free agents a lot sooner than they used to be. We used to never, until we were 31 years old, we were never a free agent, unrestricted. Now these guys are 24, 25, and they're unrestricted free agents. They're also getting zinged big time with escrow, and so they're when you're taking 12 to 15% off a guy's salary every year for escrow and never giving it back, your loyalties are going to change because the players are pissed off about escrow. And so, but if you have the power to make a choice about where you want to play for the next 8 years, anybody in any vocation in the world is going to use that power to make that choice. Hockey, it's been going on in basketball and football and it for years and years. And so what it's going to do, it's going to force some organizations to be better. And for whatever reason, but if you want to look at the big picture of what Johnny Gaudreau did, he didn't leave very much money on the table. If you really want to look at the taxes and the cost of living and all those things, and the only thing that matters is your net take home pay. He didn't leave very much money on the table, and in his mind, he's going to be able to tack on a couple more years after that deal's done anyway and make it up. But in the same token, his parents, who's, they're very close and they can get on a plane for 45 minutes and come to Columbus and see him. And he doesn't have to be able to go to the bar or the grocery store without people bugging him every day because he's in Columbus. So all these things come into play about how these decisions are made. But it's the middle of the road guys aren't going to be able to make those decisions. You're going to take $4 million in Calgary over $3 million in Nashville all day long.
Sure.
But when you're talking take $9 million here and $9 million there, and you have the choice, and you want to spend 8 years in Florida.
Yeah. I don't know. They got the Hurricanes though, right?
and you're an American kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The percentage points don't change that much. Yeah.
But the collective bargaining agreement is pushed the players into this situation where they do have the power when they are in their prime earning years to be able to make their choice. And so anybody that, of course, fans are upset about it and all this stuff.
Sure.
But the fact being is, if you've earned the right, Johnny Gauthier, what did he play, 8 or 9 years in Calgary?
Yeah, he was there a while.
He put his time in, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you earn the right to have that choice, then you'd be remiss not to take advantage of it.
And
now Calgary's got to get a new rink at the end of the day. Calgary's got a great setup. Brad Treleving's an unbelievable GM. He's a wonderful dude, and Daryl Sutter's done a great job there. But they're still playing in the worst rink in the National Hockey League. And if you go into Edmonton and you get 3 meals a day catered by a private chef in the most amazing lounge restaurant in the locker room that you've ever seen, those are important things that people don't realize. And then you walk into the bowels of the Saddle Dome and it's not the same.
And there's the head of Harvey the Hound floating in the water. And yeah,
the lifestyle on a daily basis, because these players are now asked to spend anywhere from 5 to 7 hours a day at the rink. That's what they're doing. It used to be you go for practice, you show up a half hour before practice, you go home. Now they're training, they're getting treatment, they're eating breakfast, they're watching video, they're practicing, they're watching power play video, they're penalty kill meetings, they're eating lunch. Like, you're there all day.
And then the game.
And then you're at the game. So it's your office. And so that makes a big difference. It really does. These guys are still kids. They're still Pee-wee hockey players that love a nice locker room. Even though they're NHL players, those are important. Your lifestyle on a daily basis is important. So that's all those things come into play, and you can't begrudge a player. They're not doing anything. They used to be players that hold out in the middle of their contract and demand to be traded. That doesn't happen anymore. They're just waiting for free agency and they're making their choices. And
right.
And on Tkachuk's side, he just let them know in advance that, listen, I'm not going to sign long term here, so get what you can for me. And I thought that was a pretty good thing on his part.
No kidding. I mean, it definitely shows that, and you don't see that with everyone if there's a little ill will. But I mean, the fact that they told him, or that he told them, he could have just told them, right at the very end, and like, oh, by the way, this is going to be my choice.
Yeah,
gave him enough time to get a haul back, and I think they did okay.
Right. I mean, I think it all comes down to what. I mean, I was about to ask, like, what are the things that teams should be doing for their players? Like, how do you create that loyalty? I know there's lots of stuff going on in Tampa Bay that obviously makes people want to re-sign there year after year, and some of those guys are getting paid and they're being compensated for the work that they put in. But it's more than that too. It's about the facilities, it's about the lifestyle and all that stuff. And there's, Vancouver has Elias Pettersson coming up in just a couple of years. That's going to be in the same spot that Tkachuk was just in now. And that could be a reality for this franchise. So a lot of things probably have to happen to create that loyalty between here and now.
Yeah, and they have to figure that out, and it's difficult. I don't know any more than anybody else does, other than the fact that a lot more goes into the decision other than hockey. You got a wife, you got kids, you got whatever your situation in life is. You got your mom and dad, you got a sick father in Toronto, and you're playing in LA. Maybe you want to be closer to home. I mean, all these things happen, and it's life. And people forget that these players also have a life, and they have families, and they have other responsibilities that are important. And they don't always come out and say those things publicly. But behind the scenes, they have to make the choice that's best for them. And hopefully it doesn't happen too often. I mean, this is just an anomaly. I mean, how many, this doesn't happen every year where you lose your two best players in
That's
the
crazy.
span of a week. It doesn't happen. Most situations don't happen that way. It just is unfortunate for Calgary that happened. But hey, if they can turn around and sign Huberdeau and sign Wager and get those guys locked in, then that's good on Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
fine.
You know what I mean? I mean, Calgary is a great city. I mean, it's a great spot. They love their hockey and they're huge hockey fans. I hope they can figure out a new facility there. That's a big problem for them. It was a big problem in for the New York Islanders for a while, and it was a big reason that they couldn't attract anybody to go into New York. It's that those are true stories. I mean, it seems trivial. Like, you can play in the NHL. I don't care what rink you're playing in. You tell me how many free agents are going to sign in Arizona where they're playing in a college rink. That's tough. NHL players want to play in front of 20,000 people in a beautiful locker room and a beautiful rink, and they still have the dream that they had in Pee Wee. Those are important things.
Yeah, they don't want to be playing in Memorial Arena in Kelowna.
Yeah. Why do you think Edmonton built what they built? Because they have to attract players to stay there, and it's a beautiful facility.
Yeah.
And so those are the things they're going to have to look at, providing the lifestyle for their players to make them feel comfortable.
I'm impressed. Dixon, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, unless you've got a hilarious story that you've been stowing away for an hour.
No,
by all means, throw that one out. Hopefully you still got some wine left in your glass there.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
I got where that came from. We're sitting pretty just over an hour here, and I got a nice couple steaks I got to put on the grill still tonight. So, as always, we absolutely appreciate you coming by. You bring some insight.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We wouldn't hear otherwise, and that hat looks absolutely amazing on you.
Yeah, thank you.
As I said, if you need an assistant for that list, I'm sure I could find some time. I'm sure the job pays well as well. So,
it's free wine.
Yeah, hey. Sometimes that's all it takes.
I mean, it doesn't sound that bad.
You don't have to twist my arm. All
right,
Ted,
guys. It's always been a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Ted, any final words?
No, I think we're obviously kind of running down with it. I obviously appreciate all the time that you spent with us the last little while. Like Brian said, the insight is invaluable. So thank you very much. Maybe you can take the next minute or so and just tell us what's going on in your life. What's happening on with your work? You know, what's new and exciting? What can we look forward to?
What do I got going on? Well, we're in the middle of our camp. We got camps obviously launched all summer. We got Penticton going. We got Kelowna camp going. We got Edmonton camp going. We got Calgary. We got all 4 locations going on at the same time. So we got a lot of kids moving in a lot of directions over the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is exciting. It's been post-COVID, we got everybody back on the ice, and numbers are great, and groups are full, and we're hosting all the BC high performance U16 female U18 stuff in Penticton this week, which is exciting to see all those top kids in Penticton this week trying out for the provincial teams, and that's cool. We launch our first U.S. Academy next month in Denver, so I'll be down in Denver in the middle of August to launch our academy down there, and with our group down there, our head coach David Clarkson, who played a long time in the NHL, and John Mitchell is our assistant coach, who is an NHL player with Toronto and Colorado. They're coaching our team down there, so that's exciting for us to get into the U.S. market, and we put together a high quality group down there, so that's going to be great. So we're looking forward to that. So and then getting into Europe in September, I'm going to take my wife over there, do some work, and then take her on a long earned vacation. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Attaboy. That doesn't your Denver trip doesn't happen to coincide with maybe a Denver Broncos preseason game, see Russell Wilson in the orange for the first time?
You never know.
You never know. We're not ruling it out. We're not saying no.
Yeah, holding that tight to the vest for now. Tina, you can put on the earmuffs for a second.
That's right.
So, beauty. Well, thanks a lot, Dixon. It's been an absolute pleasure, as we said, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you around the office at some point.
Okay, guys. Have a good
PP1 podcast. Let's go enjoy